today I would like to welcome to In the Pink Seat, Ask the Expert series, Trevor Tynes, and he is an SEO and Google expert who's going to explain a bit about why sometimes your online marketing maybe isn't working as well as it could. Welcome to the show, Trevor.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So let's first go with the question that I get asked most often, which is, I'm spending $10,000 a month and I have this great website and I'm not getting the new patients calling in. Why might that be?
Well, that's a great question, and I hear it a lot when a dentist is approaching me, looking for potentially a second opinion. A lot of the times we have providers out there that will not necessarily conduct business in the most ethical ways.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the times I see it over and over again. Essentially what happens is they collect money without doing any of the even fundamental work.
Mm-hmm.
And
what would some of that fundamental work be?
Well, some of the fundamental work would be proper keyword research, looking at competitors in your area that you're directly competing with, and really mapping out those keywords to specific pages on a website. At the end of the day, if a web page doesn't have the keywords or the phrases that you're targeting, meaning your potential patients are searching Google to solve a problem with your services.
Right. So, for example, someone may look up dentist in Yorkville or something like that. That would be the keywords that you need to be plugging into your Google ads as well as your website, correct?
Exactly. And for either case, for Google ads and search engine optimization getting found organically, as it's called, and locally, if those keywords aren't on your website or aren't on that page, then Google has no idea that your page is going to be relevant, and it won't rank. And usually that is a really fundamental starting point for SEO, for search engine optimization.
Perfect. So if you were to define what ranking means for a layman, how would you actually explain that?
So ranking for a layman, for anybody else, is when a patient or a potential patient is looking for a dentist to continue with a Yorkville example, they type in dentist in Yorkville. Ranking, in my opinion, is being found on Google. Usually for me, it's the first page, because at the end of the day, you're on the second page, third page. Beyond that, you're not really ranking for a key term because nobody's actually searching past the first page unless they're really doing some research, some information gathering. But at the bottom of the funnel, as they call it in marketing lingo, where people are ready to buy a service or hire a practitioner, they just want to look on the first page, because as humans, we're pretty convenience oriented, let's call it. So whoever's in the top three, let's say, is going to be getting the majority of those clicks, and then at the end of the day, have an opportunity to get a new patient inquiry and get them in the office.
Right. And the thing is, a lot of times, if people are looking past the first page, it's usually if they're looking for their own stuff.
Yeah, exactly. or
how do I rank amongst everybody else is what we're usually doing.
Yeah, and it's like, or how close am I to being on that first page?
Right.
But another big or is an SEO provider's competition. Because a huge tactic is for an SEO or digital marketer is to look on the second page for who's ranking, call them up or email them and say, hey, you're on the second page, you're so close, why don't you hire me and I can get you on the first page, right? And that's a lot of the times too, but that's besides the point.
Right. So now, getting on the first page, if someone has been marketing for a long time, Google is very aware of them, the crawlers are aware of them. Is it possible for someone who's new on the market to actually get themselves up to being ranked on the first page?
Over time, definitely. And then, I'm not Google. Anybody that can try to give or that gives some sort of like definitive guarantee or definitive answer on timeline to ranking. Unless they're working with Google, I can't say how honest I'm going to be, but it really depends. It depends on the competition. It depends on the market, like the geographic market. It depends on the actual service. Something like teeth whitening compared to dental implants. Dental implants is going to take a lot longer if you're new on the scene, let's call it, compared to teeth whitening, because it's a lower cost service, and there's more people want to have those big ticket fee for service items.
Right. So that was all organic oriented stuff. Now, if we're talking about Google Ads, I don't know if most people, when they're looking when they do a Google search, if they aren't kind of in the marketing realm, they may not be noticing that like the first few say ad beside them. It used to be very obvious the way Google did it, but now it's a little bit more subtle. So a lot of people are actually clicking on ads and they don't even realize they're doing it.
Yeah.
So how does that help or how does it help on its own, and also in conjunction with doing search engine optimization, because Google changes algorithms all the time. So it's hard for a person who's running a dental practice to even imagine trying to keep up with all the changes that keep getting thrown out.
So Google Ads is a great for a two-pronged approach to go alongside and in conjunction with SEO, and it's very budget dependent on the dentist, on the practice. It can be done all by itself, and just as you mentioned, it's gotten a lot more subtle in terms of Google showing that it's an actual ad, so it's getting more and more clicks, and a dentist can actually get right at the top of the first page almost immediately, depending on their budget. So what I like to recommend, as we were talking about before, is SEO takes some time to happen. It depends on, like, again, the competition, the keywords, the services. So it's sometimes a hard pill to swallow for a dentist to invest continuous amounts of money into SEO, organic, without seeing any sort of return. And so what I do is I suggest running Google Ads so that it can produce an almost immediate return or an immediate sort of lead generation to get people calling, get people filling out emails and submitting forms for an examination or treatment or consultation.
Right. Now, like, a lot of people want that instant gratification, and that's really where Google Ads come into play. That's the short game, right? That's where we're like zeroed in, we want results now. But if we're looking at the long game and trying to get our organic ranking on Google to be #1, we still need to be doing the back end, doing the search engine optimization. You can do those in conjunction, but does Google not give you more credibility if your search engine optimized properly versus just doing Google Ads?
Okay, so being optimized for search in terms of SEO will actually help you in Google Ads. Because the keywords are going to be in the proper places, which means that the ads are going to be more relevant, because the landing page or the website page that the visitors are being driven to is highly relevant to that searcher's intent, as they call it, the purpose of their search. So what that means is they end up actually getting cheaper clicks on a cost per click basis with Google Ads, which means in the long run more profitable leads, and at the end more profitability for the practice, which is at the end of the day the best metric.
Right. So we need to play short games and long games when it comes to our online marketing, right?
Absolutely. And just to jump on that as well with the long game, over time, as we begin to rank on the first page for these service searches, what we can do is then we have an option of either continuing running Google Ads in conjunction with our high rankings. That way it builds more brand awareness, because a searcher or a potential patient will see a brand multiple times. So they'll see the ad, they'll see the practice on Google Maps, and then they'll see it organically, which can in turn theoretically increase the click-through rate of that search to that brand.
Perfect. Now, I do have people who tell me, and I'm always a bit amused when I hear this, that I'm just going to build my own website on Wix or something like this. And
Hmm.
they think that just throwing the website out there is going to make a huge difference to their business.
Hmm.
So tell me the truth about why that doesn't work.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, a dentist of all the professions, I mean, that I've come across, uh, time is the most scarce resource. So, you're going to have to learn the platform, whether it's Wix, Squarespace, WordPress, preferably WordPress, sorry.
Mhm.
Um, and that takes time. And then there's trial and error, right? Or a dentist can hire out to a firm or a provider that's already gone through the trial and error, that already has almost perfected their process and knows the subtleties of Google SEO or Bing SEO or what have you, right? So at the end of the day, I've seen a lot of do-it-yourself websites, and when I've been tasked to take over it, essentially we either had to build new websites, or I've spent a lot of time uh, not necessarily redesigning the website, but making sure that it's optimized effectively for search. And it long run, it costs more. It may like it's you know what I mean. It just costs more, like rather than it being less expensive at the beginning. Long run, it's more expensive.
Right. And the thing that people don't realize is that it's not just about building the website and putting up pictures. You have to put in the proper keywords. You have to be building those into photographs and content and continuously updating that stuff. It's not just build it once and ta-da, you're going to be good to go. It just doesn't work that way.
No,
So they
absolutely
kind
not.
of sell it that way when they have these do-it-yourself web programs that you can do. There's so much more to it than just building the pretty thing that the patient is going to see. There's so much infrastructure behind the website that people just don't realize needs to be there for it to be even remotely effective.
You nailed it.
Good job, me.
Good job, you.
No,
And I mean,
because I hear people say this and I'm just like, oh, you don't understand. Like, go take a website building course beyond just what you can buy for the $50. And you're gonna see
yeah, for
there's
sure.
so much more to it, right?
But even a lot of web design, web designers, web developers, even the people that build websites, what I'm trying to get to,
Mm-hmm.
not all of them even understand all the subtleties of search engine optimization. They can build a really good website, but I've seen extremely great websites missing like the page titles and missing the proper heading tags, and
Yeah.
just essentially missing, again, back to that fundamental issue of not doing proper keyword research, not mapping that out properly, and I see that over and over again.
Mm-hmm. And the nice thing is, like with people like you and I, we have these little tools that we can throw your website into, and we can pull it apart with a little analysis that will say that your web guy is doing an awesome job or he's doing a really bad job.
Exactly.
Yeah, we don't like to be the bearers of bad news, but it's so easy to actually figure out whether it has been done properly or not, and whether you should continue spending your $10,000 a month or whatever you're spending to keep
Hmm.
that person, or if you should be looking at switching to a different person, right?
Absolutely. And I mean, at the higher levels, higher retainer levels, in my experience, I've seen a lot better work done.
Mm.
Whereas it's the more affordable SEO services, the cheaper, more inexpensive SEO services that are only a couple of $100 a month,
Mm-hmm.
that end up being more costly in the long run.
For sure.
And when I'm introduced to a dentist or a client that had been paying a small amount, and I say, listen, this is what it's actually going to be, and they ask why, I say, well, based on my second opinion, based on this analysis, this is everything that hasn't been done. This is everything that needs to be done. This is everything that hasn't been done, which should have been done right away. And this is why you're going to be paying me more.
Right. Yes, and there's like backlinks and everything else that are going to help people with getting their ranking up.
Mm-hmm.
I've had a few people recently where I just feel like the web person saw them as a dentist and saw them coming and saw that they were an easy mark and probably going to be willing to spend the money because they want to get those patients. So they're willing to make the investment. And I had one that I did analysis on, and there's 2 keywords on their website, period. And I'm just shocked at how much they've spent on this, and they're wondering why they're having to hire this outside service to bring in patients for them, because they can't get patients in themselves on their own website, which seems almost criminal to me. I wouldn't say almost criminal, I would say it is criminal.
For sure.
Which is really frustrating to see, because again, dentists, people see us as making a ton of money, right? And so it's easy for people to try and oversell something and overprice something for us because we probably can afford it, even though maybe it's not going to be the best version of what we can actually get for ourselves, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I mean, at the end of the day, paying a premium for exceptionally quality work, I have no problem doing that. It's when you pay a premium and nothing is being done that should be done, and it should be in fact criminal. And it's funny that you said that, because I had just messaged a connection, a friend, let's say, on LinkedIn, and those were my exact words. I said, he should be in jail. This is criminal, and there needs to be some legislation or some regulations within this industry, because it's almost like the Wild West.
Yes, no, it totally is. And yeah, you've got gunslingers everywhere. And some of them are good and some of them are not.
Yeah.
Now, you had asked me to come back to the algorithms, so I'm going to remind you of that and let you take that away.
Perfect. So you're absolutely correct. Obviously, Google updates their algorithms, makes updates on a daily basis. Really, it's hundreds of times a year. What I really wanted to make clear was the best way, or best defense, I guess you can say, against any sort of algorithmic changes that could get your website penalized or de-indexed or get all your rankings taken away, is ensure that you're putting out amazing content that's extremely valuable to your patients and your potential patients, and even your colleagues, even other dentists that will want to share your content and link to it, meaning mention it on their own website, and manually go out and get other websites to mention your content on your website. And if you're building or creating fantastic content like you do, and people read it and people share it and people mention you and cite your work, basically, you're never going to have anything to worry about, because at the end of the day, Google wants to give their searchers the best answer or best solution for whatever question or problem that they have, and they're turning to Google to solve. You know what? You're helping Google, and Google's going to help you, and that's the best way to protect against algorithm change.
Perfect. Now, we always go into a bit of conversation about associates, because a lot of times they're neglected in the business space when it comes to dentistry, because they're not being seen as business people, even though some of them are starting to figure out that they actually can be quite entrepreneurial in their associateships. One thing that I do recommend for them is that, especially if they're ever going to potentially be an owner, they need to start learning to market. And online marketing is a big component of that, because if they're eventually going to be having their own practice, or even if they switch practices, a lot of times the practice that they worked at isn't going to tell people where they went. They're going to say, oh, they left the country, or they've retired from dentistry. I hear that all the time.
Yeah, and at 25.
Yeah, and so you want to make sure that you've got yourself protected against that as well. So for an associate, if they were going to start building their online footprint, what would you recommend that they do?
So first, I would recommend getting on social profiles such as Facebook, even LinkedIn, Twitter. You know what? Getting onto question-based websites like Quora, because lots of people are asking various questions regarding oral health.
Right.
Answering those questions, becoming a resource to them, even if it's not necessarily bringing in business, it's building their brand.
Right.
Obviously, getting a website built out for themselves, whether it's the domain's their own name, so for basically like personal branding. I would recommend getting on Google Maps or creating a Google My Business account
Right.
just for that associate. And then also, as you were talking, I don't know where it came from, but it just dawned in my head. But joining city parenting, like those types of Facebook groups, and just really contributing to the community in that regard. Because like, I don't know what's going on with this world today, but everybody's moving online. There's less face-to-face, less in-person contact, that sort of stuff. So wherever you can create relationships at scale, and Facebook groups are an amazing way of doing that, I'd recommend doing that as well.
Right. And a lot of the thing I find with associates is they're kind of shy to have a voice because, well, part of the reason they're being an associate is so they can kind of stay under the radar a little bit. They're under a parent company. They can go in and do their work. But if they want to start actually creating more visibility for themselves, whether it's they really want to put themselves out there or they just want to be findable, most important thing is to be findable. You don't have to be an influencer. You don't have to be someone who's creating all this amazing content every day, but you need to be starting to create that online presence so that you are findable. If you go on and you search yourself, you should be able to find photos of you. You should be able to find links where your name appears and that kind of stuff. And you want to be starting to choose that as well. So how can people choose how they're going to be found on the internet?
By doing the actual creation of that content and making sure that they're on websites with very strong domain authority, such as Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, that sort of stuff, right? Because just by having their names on those platforms, because of the strength and the popularity of those websites, those are going to be naturally found, rather than somehow being found on a dating site or something like that. You have to be mindful, right? So.
Not supposed to put your whole name on the dating website.
No, exactly. But you never know what's going to happen, right? So that's how they can basically choose, and like we were talking before we started recording, is sort of engineer our environment, right? And that's essentially what they can do. And by creating content, developing that website for themselves, personally branded, creating writing blog content based on what they're learning. Like I know that, like you had mentioned, they want to stay under the radar or what have you. To reach expertise levels, you gotta read, you gotta learn, you gotta create, you gotta write it out, and that's what really retains that information and brings you closer to expert mastery. And you got to start somewhere, right? And like you said, you don't need to be an influencer right away, because that's pretty tough to do right out of the gates. But it takes time, it takes each step to get to that destination. Okay,
so is there anything else that you want to add at this point?
I think we're good. I think we covered a lot of really valuable items, and we can move on to the next section.
Perfect. Well, for those of you who are watching this on LinkedIn or YouTube, if you want to get the more exclusive stuff, which we're going to talk about after this, which is some really targeted stuff for dentists, and it's our paid content, you can click on the link to get there. Otherwise, for today, I would like to thank Trevor for joining me. Where can people find you to get the information to work with you?
Okay, so my main platform is LinkedIn. You can either search me, Trevor Tynes, and you'll probably it'll be the top search result is my LinkedIn. Or if you go right into LinkedIn, search Trevor Tynes. I believe I'm the only one in the world, which is great for branding. Or you can go to www.trevortynes.ca, and you'll find a website that's under construction. But
way to go!
You'll find it.
Perfect. Well, we'll put that up on the screen so people can actually find that as well.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, so now we're going to get into the Pineapple-y exclusive part of the interview, where we talk about some really key tips for owners as well as associate dentists when it comes to online marketing.